There's a new development around the case of Breonna Taylor. It looks like one of the officers involved is now in a new lawsuit. HuffPost is reporting that Louisville Metro Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly is actually suing Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. So, wait, no, you've heard that right. It is the officer, Mattingly, that is suing Kenneth Walker, and technically it's a countersuit. And so now, it's amazing. Here you have a police officer that is suing the widow of the woman that he shot, his girlfriend. I mean, it's crazy. Now, the lawsuit, Mattingly claims that Walker's actions, when he defended himself, he and two other officers broke into Taylor's apartment and shot her, caused him, quote, emotional distress. Oh, are you emotionally distressed, Mr. Police Officer, that broke in and shot someone? Really? Are you supposed to be a tough guy? You're supposed to be this badass police officer, right? But now you've got emotional distress. Oh, I can't believe it. Now, well, I guess apparently him being shot by Kenneth Walker in the leg, by the way, that's what caused him emotional distress. So what happened is, of course, he bursts in. He and the other police officers burst in with battering ram. Walker fires in self-defense, striking Mattingly in the leg. Mattingly returns fire, as well as the other police officers. They shot over 24 times, a lot of which goes into the wall, some of which go into Breonna Taylor. She bleeds out. She dies on the floor. This guy, this police officer who was involved in that, says, well, now I've got severe trauma, mental anguish, and emotional distress not from the whole thing that played out, not the way that it played out, like the fact that, oh man, I feel really horrible that I shot this woman for basically no reason. There were no drugs in the apartment. They didn't find any contraband. They didn't find any evidence that she was running drugs with her ex-boyfriend. In fact, Kenneth Walker was afraid that it was the ex-boyfriend that showed up and was looking to defend himself. And so that's not what happened. It was plainclothes police officers, to which most of the witnesses said they did not announce themselves as police officers. Bust in, he defends himself with his Second Amendment right. He's a legal gun owner, okay, concealed carry, all that. Didn't know it was police officers, so he fired. Ironically, he did the Joe Biden thing, shot him in the leg. And this guy has the audacity to sue Kenneth Walker. It's outrageous. In fact, here's what their lawyer is saying. Quote, Walker's conduct in shooting Mattingly was outrageous, intolerable, and offends all accepted standards of decency and morality. What are you talking about, dude? What the fuck? You broke into an apartment and killed his girlfriend right in front of him based on a faulty warrant, which was first like a no-knock raid, and then later on it was changed from a knock raid to where they're supposed to go and announce themselves, and it gets really involved, and it gets complicated. But basically, after that happened, after you shot and killed his girlfriend, you then arrested him and tried to charge him with assault and attempted murder of a police officer, and when that didn't work, you then sued him. Garbage person. What an absolute garbage person. Mattingly's attorney, Kent Wicker, also told the Courier-Journal in a statement that his client is, quote, entitled to and should use the legal process to seek a remedy for the injury that Walker has caused him. That's insanity. What? No, okay. So now, Walker's attorney, Steve Romanis, dismissed the lawsuit. Here's what he said. Quote, this is the latest in a cycle of police aggression, deflection and responsibility, and obstruction of the facts in what is an obvious cover-up. You know what the most frustrating thing is about this, though? The silence from Second Amendment supporters. Apparently, the right to defend yourself does not apply to black people. And yet, ultimately, those same people end up hurting their cause when they allow the police officers to do this kind of thing. Romanus continues by pointing out that if Kenny can be sued for defending himself, make no mistake, all lawful gun owners' rights are at risk, and that should scare everyone. We intend to defend Kenny, once again, from baseless charges intended to harm, intimidate, and cover up the events of March 13th, 2020. This is petty. This is as petty as fuck. Look at the mentality, though. The claim that, I'm the victim, when in reality, these guys are the aggressors. He's lucky that a grand jury didn't indict him for this. And look, it's likely because Attorney General Daniel Cameron didn't bring those charges. He's a massive Republican. He's a protege of Mitch McConnell, who didn't put homicide charges on the table for the grand jury at all. In fact, according to the anonymous grand juror through his attorney, or their attorney, Kevin Glogauer, quote, the grand jury wasn't even presented any charges other than the 3 wanton endangerment charges against Detective Hankinson. Hankinson was the one who actually got charges. The other officers didn't. They weren't charged with anything. They got off completely scot-free. It's amazing. It really is. Hankinson, by the way, Hankinson's the fall guy. You realize that Mattingly and the other officer were already in the apartment. Hankinson, yes, he pulled out his gun and he started shooting when he was running up to the apartment. He wasn't even in there. And he started shooting. That was wanton endangerment, by the way. But the rest, I mean, this was ridiculous. Ridiculous. So now, that anonymous juror also adds that the grand jury didn't even have homicide offenses explained to them. The grand jury never heard anything about those laws, of which in Kentucky there are about 6 different charges that could have been used. The grand jury did not agree, also, that the certain actions were justified, nor did it decide the indictment should be the only charges in the Breonna Taylor case. The grand jury was not given the opportunity to deliberate on those charges and deliberated only what was presented to them. I cannot speak for the other jurors, but I can help the truth be told. And of course, that's why they called it a cover-up. The entire case was an absolute complete miscarriage of justice. There was no justice here. The entire case and the fallout exposes so much about what's wrong with our criminal justice system. The fact that they can lie to get the warrants, they could try to pressure people like the ex-boyfriend into adopting the police narrative. Post-mortem, she was already dead. And they said, now, and they already had the ex-boyfriend in custody, right? The one who was dealing drugs. And they said, well, if you just admit to us that Breonna Taylor was helping you deal drugs, well then, we're not going to go so hard after you. We're going to try to give you a deal. That was after her body was cold. It's pretty obvious what they were trying to do. So obvious. I mean, and now, even with all of that fuckery, one of these officers is deciding to countersue for what he calls mental distress. It's insane. Absolute effing garbage. I hope it gets not only thrown out of court, but, they figure out some way to go after these officers and actually hold them accountable for the stuff that they did, for the death of Breonna Taylor. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.